Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Life with Lizzie show. I'm your host, Lizzie Morris, and this episode of the show is about my food addiction story. And like every story or everything that I have to tell you guys, there's obviously a lot of backstory and things to unpack. So with that being said, let's get into my food addiction story. So it all really goes back to when I was really young. The first instance that I know of where issues came about with food was, I don't know, maybe like I was like 3 or 4 years old, super young, not in school yet. And I go to my grandma's house and she has this like garden with peppers and stuff. So apparently from the story that I've been told, because I don't really remember it, is that my grandma gave me a pepper, but told me it was like sweet, like it tasted good or something. And it was hot and it literally like burned my tongue. And I think my mom was really mad. And from then on, or not forever, but for a minute there, I had like trust issues with food. And so, this is a funny story that I'll touch over briefly. So apparently the only thing I trusted was like McDonald's chicken nuggets or something. I don't know how that came about. So actually, speaking of, my second birthday party was at McDonald's. If you're picking up what I'm putting down on my life, okay? So, I would only eat like McDonald's chicken nuggets. Like obviously my grandma done scarred me for life. I got trust issues, that was really, really a poor decision on her part. Parents, do not trick your kids, man. That will screw them up. I would only eat McDonald's chicken nuggets, but obviously my parents couldn't do that, right? And we actually did eat pretty healthy, up into a point that I'll explain in a minute. But they obviously couldn't just give me McDonald's every day. So from what I recall, what my mom would do is while my dad was at work, my mom would, make chicken and like make the meal at home, like a homemade meal, and then put it in the McDonald's little, you guys know the Happy Meal boxes? She would put it in a Happy Meal box and then like give it to my dad, like outside the door, I guess, like before he came inside, and then he would bring the McDonald's basket inside, and then like I was being tricked, but like that's like a good type of tricking, okay? The fact that they did all that because they know I wouldn't eat anything otherwise is like, you got to do what you got to do as a parent sometimes. And I just thought that the story was really funny. But I don't know how long that lasted. I definitely don't think it wasn't like an extremely absurd amount of time because, continuing into childhood, I stayed relatively healthy. My mom put me in cheerleading. She had signed me up for ballet before, just different things, like kept me pretty active as a child. We didn't have, this was back in the late 90s, early 2000s. We didn't have like a bunch of electronics just all the time. Like we didn't even really have like a good TV up until one point. So we were always on the move, and my mom had us pretty active. But then what happened was is that my parents ended up splitting when I was about like 6 or 7 years old. It was when I was in the first grade. And during that time, me and my sister, we were the only siblings that existed at this point. We stayed with my dad for a hot minute there, like the rest of my school year. My sister wasn't in school yet, but when that happened, when we were with my dad pretty much full time, that's when things kind of like picked up, I feel like, from my memory. Even looking back at pictures, me in kindergarten versus me in late first grade, even versus me in second grade when I was still with my dad, you could see in pictures the transition of me getting bigger. Like realistically, within 2 years was a big difference. My dad was, obviously just in survival mode. I believe he was an alcoholic. Like God rest his soul. I love my dad. He was a great dad. He just wasn't, he didn't make the best decisions sometimes, and that's okay. We're not all perfect. I don't think we make these decisions in the moment, expecting them to affect our kids the rest of their life, whatever the decisions may be. So I think we always just try our best, and I think my dad was just doing the best he could and, didn't realize it's not like there wasn't many fat people in our family, okay? Like I am to this day still the fattest person in my family, if that gives you perspective. Like, And don't tell me I can't call myself fat. I can call myself fat because everyone always tells me, don't say that, girl, I'm fat. What do you mean? But anyway, so I don't think it was ever like a big thing to be concerned about at the time, especially when you're not seeing like the negative side effects of it, right? So moving on from first grade to second grade, I'm still living with my dad, but I switched schools and we move in with my grandparents. And I will tell you, if you've ever lived with your grandparents, it might be different for everybody, but I will tell you, grandma, is the junk food queen. You know what I'm saying? And I mean that like, and grandparents spoil their babies. I am seeing this with my mom and my son, and I'm having to like nip things in the bud personally because I can see already the negative effects on my son of eating like junk food for like just 2 weeks being at her house and stuff, and like just me allowing my husband to give him things and stuff like that. So I don't want to make those same mistakes. You learn from your parents' mistakes, but grandparents love to give that stuff. And again, I don't think a lot of times, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, I mean, yeah, there was fat people in the world, but it wasn't like what we see today. It is obviously on a different level. We obviously have a lot more education around the foods we're eating and things like that and whatnot, but nobody knew. So at my grandma's house, let me tell y'all, we would eat any pizza, chicken nuggets, Oreos, ice cream, Nutter Butters, Gushers, all the 9 yards, y'all. You think of the junk food aisle, we had access to it like pretty much all the time. Sweet tea, juice, I'm pretty sure. I did drink a lot of water. I always was a pretty big water drinker. So that was second grade. I remember that year stepping on the scale at my grandma's house because I don't think we had had a scale prior. But I stepped on her scale at her house, and I believe second grade, it was when I noticed stretch marks on my body for the first time. And I know that's not the norm for most children. And to step on the scale and to feel like what you weigh is what an adult's supposed to weigh, being 7, 8 years old. Well, moving on to third grade, I moved a lot of schools, you guys. I went to many schools, moved many, many times in my life, all relatively close in area, but nonetheless, I've moved a lot and transferred schools a lot. So third grade, I'm in a new school and still living with my dad. Every day I remember at that school, my dad would give me 50 cents to get ice cream. And so I would get an ice cream sandwich. And then I would eat the school lunch, which was, I'm sure, incredibly unhealthy. Then I would go home and have an after-school snack, which was sweet tea, a bag of popcorn, or a whole damn row of crackers and cheese. And then have a pretty unhealthy dinner, like pizza, chicken nuggets, macaroni, tacos, And that cycle continued. And not to say I never, ate healthy food, but yeah, I didn't even like strawberries until I was way older, you guys. Pathetic. My taste buds have expanded. I like so much more stuff now as an adult. I ended up being a pretty picky kid over the time, of eating all that junk food and filling my body with crap. And so over the years, it just, obviously I just got bigger and bigger and bigger. I couldn't even wear normal clothes that girls my age would wear. I would have to wear, sweatpants to school and stretchy shorts, cotton shorts and t-shirts, all the pictures from me. Or how, if you have been on TikTok lately, how it shows how plus size young girls are meant to taught to dress business casual at 9 years old. That was also me. If my parents were trying to make me dress nice, I looked like a grown woman in just a fat kid's body, basically. And then eventually moving into late elementary school, early middle school, even into high school, people started to become you could see people being more concerned about me being unhealthy. Our lifestyle was not what it had been, when I was really young. So food kind of became my crutch, over the years. Dealing with the things that I dealt with, food was my go-to. Food made me, quote unquote happy and all these things, and filled that void that I had in the other areas of my life. And not only that, was I enabled at a young age, when I got older, and people would try to secretly sometimes, and then not so secretly, but it was always obvious to me, get me to do a diet or Like I remember Weight Watchers being brought up when I was like in 6th grade or maybe even 5th grade. Just conversations being brought up that it kind of felt like, I was being just targeted and there was always something wrong with me. And I'm not saying that, the people around me, the adults, didn't try to do their best when they noticed a problem. They didn't know how to handle the situation. It's just, it always felt like there was this pressure on me, from other people. And it made me feel uncomfortable just being myself. Really, I had a really long time of being really uncomfortable around people because of the way I thought they perceived me and the way they came across about my size and the food I was eating and stuff like that. So fast forward to high school, I ended up getting on birth control and have a lot of issues with that. My food addiction, yes, I was overweight. Obviously I did not eat very healthy. However, I was like 200 pounds. That seems so big to a lot of people, but looking back, it's like, your girl looked good. Doesn't mean I was healthy, but I looked good. But getting on birth control and stuff, kind of like blew me up in a very short amount of time, going from like 200 to like 240, within like 3 months of being on the Depo shot. And then from there, I started working at Hardee's and, had free soda, my whole shift. I could get like reduced or sometimes free meals depending on how long I worked. I'd go home, eat junk food, go to bed, go to school, eat crappy food at school, go to work, come home, So that was kind of like where things started to pick up in my teenage years. But then when I got up to 260 pounds, I was offered to do a diet program and I said yes and did it. And within a very relatively short amount of time, I lost 60 pounds. So the accomplishment of making the scale move did work. However, that was a really twisted time in my life looking back now and like the things that I felt, but I felt like I wasn't allowed to feel that way because this was being gifted to me and people were proud of me for losing weight. And, it was like if I went to a birthday party, I'm already 60 pounds down. I went to a birthday party. They have Little Caesars pizza. I have a slice of pizza. People asking me, are you supposed to have that? That I cannot tell you how many times I was asked that during that time period of being on that diet, to the point where I felt guilty for just literally having a bite of like anything off of this diet. It was very toxic for me personally. I'm not going to speak on it any further. It was not something I would ever do again or ever encourage anyone to do. It was not great for me. So while I had lost that 60 pounds, I go get on the IUD. And within the first month on the IUD, I gained 20 pounds. Keep in mind, at this time, I was not only doing that diet, which was like 800 calories a day. Whew. And I was going to aerobics classes 3 times a week. I was going to work after being at college all day, running around campus. And I had a pretty active job cleaning. I was like cleaning lady. So I was very active doing all the things. Birth control is the devil. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But it was always kind of like when I got older, it was like it enhanced my problems, if that makes sense. So on that birth control, I bled for like a whole year, nonstop. I bled on my wedding. I bled just 24/7 on the IUD until about a year post having it in. And so I don't know what it was that first month. It wasn't that noticeable to other people too. It was like that 20 pounds just, I don't know if it was like a lot of fluid retention or whatever, or it was evenly distributed. It wasn't very obvious. But then things just started to get worse. And honestly, the longer I had been on that diet, I was just hating myself, hating the way I felt, hating the way people were treating me, hating the way the food tasted. I just was in a dark place. And not only that, but like a lot of my efforts were kind of like going down the window. Had a lot of negative side effects early on from the birth control. Like, I got sciatica not too long after it. I was in a lot of pain. And then not only that, I had contraction cramps, which was verified by my doctor is what it was. My uterus was trying to expel my IUD, which it ended up embedding into my uterine wall. So a lot of crazy things happened during that time period. And so eventually I just had to stop doing the diet. I had to just stop it. I got married, and that was kind of like my easiest way out because it was being gifted to me. So when that happened, I gained 160 pounds within about 2 years. And during that time, like right after I got married, we moved about 3 hours away from family. And keep in mind, I was always seeing my family. Yes, I felt pressured by certain people and all the things, but I was always surrounded by people all the time. Like, I always had people around me. And I went from that to moving into an apartment where I became like a stay-at-home wife, essentially, and saw nobody. I would go months without seeing my family. And actually really without talking to a lot of family, to be honest. Everyone was busy working in school, doing all that. I'm like the only one at home, and my car broke down. I didn't get a job. I just became, I don't really like who I became during that time. I don't even recognize who I became at that time, not just from the weight gain, but because of who I was. And I think that has a lot to do with birth control as well. Once I got that birth control removed, I became a totally different person. Like, there's a very obvious, stage in my life, even looking back at my Facebook and stuff, right around the time of getting that birth control removed, how my everything that I said, the way I spoke, the way I acted shifted. So that was a really dark time, just eating constantly. I was in so much pain at the peak of my weight, 365 pounds. I felt like I had arthritis. I felt like I was an 80-year-old woman. It was, and not even closely exaggerating, you guys, I had to take 5 minutes to get out of the bed because it hurt so bad to move after laying in the bed and having all of that weight on my joints all the time. Going up and down the stairs was, very, very exhausting. Not because being out of breath, I actually had to go so slow. It's not like I was out of breath because I had to go so slow because my legs, my hips were so just stuck. I swear, I don't know if that's what arthritis feels like, but the pressure from that weight really was doing a number on my body. So we had actually, at that point, I had got my birth control removed earlier this year. Like I said, this is the peak of my weight. I was 364.8 is my highest recorded weight. I just say 365 pounds. I had been off birth control for about 8 or 9 months. My periods were still not normal. Obviously, I wasn't eating healthy. There were some efforts during those times to try to get my health on track. There's certain times where I put a little effort in here, put a little effort in there, but I never stuck with anything. So, we had started trying for a baby after I got that birth control removed. So around end of 2018, it had been about, 8-9 months that I had that removed. So we had been trying for about that long, and I was not getting pregnant. And my cycles were abnormal and all these things. So something I initially looked into, not looking for it to help with my food addiction at all. This was more so to help my pain. My friend had introduced me to CBD oil. I had no idea anything about it prior to this, okay? But I was in so much pain, and I saw her talking about it, and I was like, I need this. I don't take pain medication like that. I'm in so much pain. This is ridiculous. She was raving about how great she felt. So I tried it. I kid you not. The first night that I took CBD was the first night that I not only did not have a sleep hallucinations. That's a whole nother subject. Oh my gosh. That was horrible. So I didn't have sleep hallucinations that night. I got a full night's rest. I woke up, the earliest I had woke up in years. I used to sleep in till 12 o'clock, okay? But because I got a full night's rest, I was up at 7 o'clock. I was able to move my body. CBD, I will forever be pro cannabis as a whole, period, point blank. It's a miracle plant. If you disagree, well, we probably can't be friends because it does more good than harm. And there's a lot of reform that needs to be done around that whole subject. But it really changed my quality of life overnight. And so I didn't expect it to help with, like I said, my food addiction or anything like that. But somehow it did. During my food addiction, essentially, like, I know I'm kind of going back all over the place, you guys. My brain doesn't operate the way a story should be told. So backtrack before I get into to what happened with the CBD oil. So I don't know if you guys know this, and I'm not probably saying it completely correctly because I don't remember verbatim how it's explained, but the idea is the same. That as we abuse food and overeat, we weaken and almost damage, numb the receptors that go from our stomach to our brain to tell us we're full. That can make it to where people can keep eating and eating and eating. Like, do you ever wonder why, like, some people can just keep eating and you're like, how does that all fit in there? It's because our brain and stomach has that weakened connection now. It's not the same. We have damaged it. That's how people that, get to be 600 pounds, like, can keep eating that way, 12,000 calories a day, because they've done that damage to their body. So I felt like, that was me. Like, I could binge eat, I could just eat and eat and eat. And, it just got to a point where, like, I probably felt like crap, but I got so used to it. And like I said, my body was numbing to the responders or whatever. You can Google it. Like, this is supposed to be a real thing. And it totally makes sense to me the more I think about it. Just like people that like do real drugs, like, you desensitize yourself over time. Your tolerance goes down. Just like with alcohol, like, you can drink more without being as drunk. You can eat more without feeling as full. It's really a crazy phenomenon. And I'm sure it's just all across the board for addiction, period. It makes a lot of sense. So that was me. I also, growing up, my dad always told us to finish our plates. I remember many times, being told to finish my plate before I got up. And so I don't know if that's exactly why. Me and my friends have talked about this a few times, and it seems to be a really common thing with people that have eating disorders as they grow up, that they were told to, like, finish their plates and stuff. So I always had this issue. Like, seriously, I felt like this emotional, weird feeling without finishing my food. It didn't matter even if I felt full. I mean, there was times where I obviously did feel full, and I just couldn't help but feel like I had to finish my plate. Whether it was like out to eat, fast food, something I made at home, I always would finish my food. I never wasted food. I kid you not. Never. So, unless it was something that just tasted gross, I guess. And even then, I remember still eating food that didn't even taste that appealing to me. And that's literally food addiction. So it was a very emotional thing, seriously, referring back to how I felt, especially with the, having food left on the plate. So now that you have that background and you understand, like, how big of a deal that was for me, because truly, never did I waste food. Never did I miss an opportunity to eat as much food as I could. Hence why I was 365 pounds at like 21 years old. So fast forward to that company trip. Okay. This was right, within the first week or so of me taking the CBD that we go. And I started my period when I was there. So I was like so grateful I had the oil. And I remember taking it one morning, like maybe the first morning that we had woke up and been there. And, to manage my cramps and whatnot, my anxieties and all that. And we went to breakfast with everybody. It's a big group of us. And I remember for the first time that I could ever remember in my life, not finishing my breakfast, feeling full, feeling satisfied, and feeling emotionally okay to not keep eating that food. Like, I felt this peace. And, to some people that don't understand how that feels, like, it might sound dramatic, but I kid you not, it felt amazing to know that I didn't have to keep eating. It was a revelation. Like, seriously, on that trip, I was like blown away at how I was able to start doing that, and that was kind of when I started to feel the emotional aspect of my food addiction dissipate. Was seriously CBD. And I'm not sitting here claiming that it can cure or do whatever. I mean, I don't even think the medical community recognizes food addiction as like actual food addiction. I don't hear that word being tossed around as often as, it probably should be. But that was definitely the beginning of the journey. Now the scale really didn't move much. It moved a little bit here and there. So then the beginning of 2019 is when things really kicked off. And I just said enough's enough. So the reason I brought up infertility and trying to conceive earlier, I realized listening back that I totally didn't connect the dots with that conversation. The reason I bring that up is because I also felt like the cause of my infertility was my weight. And while that's not true for some people that are bigger, that might not be relatively related to what is causing their infertility. But I do know that the more crap food you're eating, the more pressure you're putting on your body, the more you're not taking care of yourself properly, the more inflammation you have, the more your organs are not working, and all the things. So that was kind of like just everything kind of happening at once, going through infertility, overcoming my food addiction, and also opening up myself to the holistic community, So very transformational time in my life, to be honest, a turning point in the direction my life was heading for sure. So the CBD actually also helped regulate my cycles. I went from having cycles that were 60 days apart, 25 days apart, then 45 days apart, nothing close to consistent, to having 28, 29-day cycles. It was really, again, can't make medical claims, but I'll tell you, CBD is a miracle. So yeah, beginning of 2019, I just learned portion control, and something I had started doing, I had signed up for this like meal program thing. Basically, you eat the foods that are on this list, and it wasn't restrictive for me. I did not come out of leaving that like meal plan feeling any type of distraught feelings or feeling like my relationship with food was worse or anything like that, because a lot of the foods on the list were foods I really, really liked, and I literally ate the same meals all the time that I actually liked. Like, it wasn't crap food that just tasted disgusting. It was literally like these huge avocado salads and like veggie burgers and just a lot of things that I actually really enjoyed. And it didn't teach you like that much of portion control. It really, because you could have like unlimited veggies and stuff like that. But it just, something that she really inspired us to do was to look at the ingredients, look at how much sodium is in everything. The less ingredients of something, the better, and I never even thought of it that way. I always looked at like calories in versus calories out. I didn't track calories on that meal plan ever, not one time. Not once did I ever track calories. I felt satiated. I felt full. I felt satisfied. Everything. It was not toxic for me whatsoever, and I'm grateful for it. But unfortunately, that meal plan doesn't exist anymore, and it's really old and whatnot. So it's just about finding what works for you and doing that on your own sometimes versus having people try to like influence you to like. It's kind of trial and error within yourself. But I think because I was the one who initiated it for myself, and it really just worked for me. I lost 35 pounds in a really fast time. Just in my Facebook memories, it's only January 19th. And on January 19th, 2019, when I had just started my journey, I had already lost 22 pounds doing this meal plan. And I think it was because a combination of obviously just making healthier choices, eating lots and lots of vegetables, choosing the right protein, things like that. I also had cut back on like the table salt and anything that I was buying that wasn't fresh fruits or vegetables or anything like that. I did try to find the things with the least amount of ingredients, which is usually why I would go to Aldi often. So that's kind of where the lifestyle changes started. And I really did learn portion control. Like that with the CBD, I guess at the same time, just it really balanced my emotions and helped that whole experience be so much easier, I think. So I ended up losing like 35 pounds doing that. And then eventually, I got to the point where I had learned what I needed to learn. Here's what is so important about doing diets or programs or whatever it is that you are trying to do, okay? You need to know, because some of them are not sustainable for life. That meal plan was definitely not something I would have ever continued to do forever. And I knew that. There was things I obviously was going to want to eat again. But for the time being, I was okay with it because I really, like I said, I was making some bomb salads, you guys, and I would eat them every day. I would eat these giant salads, like freaking massive. But because it was all, fruits and vegetables, it was really easy to digest and just not feel like crap after eating that much, That was the other thing. It wasn't like I was over killing myself. It's like a bunch of lettuce and tomatoes and carrots and some protein and all that stuff. Avocado. But once I got to like I said, 35 pounds ish, I just knew that I had learned the lessons and the tools that I needed to learn from this program and this meal plan, that I can move on from it and start incorporating it to other areas of my life. So then from there, I was able to lose another 15 pounds before I ended up getting pregnant about, 6 months-ish later. So, it was a lot slower because I did allow myself to start eating more dairy again. And, there was a lot of events that we did in 2019. Like I went to weddings and things like that. And I will say I did drink a lot of alcohol in 2019. Even though I had went on this journey of holistic health and all the things, going through infertility, that was my one bad thing. Was infertility kind of had me really feeling like I was less than. And so I would kind of do really good for a week. Again, this was mostly after I'd done the meal plan. I wasn't really drinking much at the beginning of 2019. It kind of more so happened once I was a year and a half into infertility. The 15 pounds, that's why it took 6 months essentially, because I just took my time and would eat really good during the week. And then I would drink a lot of alcohol on the weekend and all that stuff. So, but nonetheless, I still was able to lose weight without doing that because I did learn portion control, except for when it came to binge drinking. So then I got pregnant when I was 50 pounds down, you guys. I got pregnant with my son. So I was still 315, 320 at the time. And that's how much I weighed when I had him. So I gained 5 pounds my entire pregnancy. Had gestational hypertension. You guys know that whole story, I'm pretty sure. If you don't, we'll be doing episodes on it in the future. So I had him. And then after having him, not too long, maybe a month postpartum, I decided to get on Weight Watchers. Now, the reason I decided to do Weight Watchers is because, again, I did not want to track calories. Calories were not my thing. However, when I was pregnant, like I said, I didn't gain a bunch of weight or anything, but I did make a lot more unhealthy decisions. I just felt like I needed something kind of like when I got on the meal plan last time. I just needed something to kind of recenter myself, give me the right tools that would kind of lead me to success, and then end it when I didn't need it anymore. And that's exactly what I did. And so on Weight Watchers, I lost about, how much would I say? 25 pounds doing that. In a relatively short amount of time. And again, I was postpartum and, it was a rough time, but it did help me lose about 25 pounds. So once I got 75 pounds ish, I still was kind of doing it, but honestly, I stopped tracking my food a lot. And then eventually I just canceled it. I lost another 10 pounds. I got down to 85 pounds lost, just doing my own thing. I did start drinking ketones, which got me, because once I got to 80 pounds, I was at a plateau for 2 months. And then I started drinking ketones, and in 2 weeks, I lost 5 pounds. And I was down 85 pounds. And then not too long after that, I literally got pregnant again. So that is kind of how everything came to be. So with all that being said, I will say, I at one point felt really healed from my food addiction, particularly before, when I got down to the 50 pounds lost. And even through my pregnancy, because I didn't binge eat, I just ate really unhealthy. That's the thing. I didn't sit there and eat a biscuit and 2 hash browns and a large sweet tea. No, I would just get 1 biscuit, and that was more once every 2 weeks anyway, or once a month, but still, I didn't binge eat during pregnancy. It was hard for me to do that. I just didn't have the room in my stomach to do that. But I still, like I said, was making those unhealthy decisions. So for a long time, I actually felt really confident in the fact that I thought I was completely past food addiction. Like food addiction, like binge eating would never come back. Eating till I'm past full and not giving a crap. Like I didn't think that could happen. I will say postpartum, even though I did lose another total 35 pounds, that did resurface. A lot of that stuff did kind of pop back up. And I think that was a lot from the postpartum anxiety and just all the things I was feeling with breastfeeding and my birth stuff and everything like that. I would find myself, I knew I couldn't go back to alcohol, obviously. I could not cope with my problems with alcohol like I did before I got pregnant with my son. So I think that's when I kind of like went back to food. And it wasn't obviously as bad because I didn't gain any weight. I kept losing weight, but it was like here and there I would catch it happening just really randomly, like every couple weeks, like maybe once a month type thing. It probably evened out to when I was on my period. I don't even know, but I just would catch myself sometimes having that happen. So there was moments here and there where I was a little nervous that, things might get bad again. And it's just a matter for me of catching myself in those moments and trying and not letting it continue to happen on a daily basis. Because if you let it happen one day and then the next day and then the next day and the next day, well, it's just going to keep happening. But if it happens once, and you can go like another week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and try to make those spaces longer in between each time, that's when the progress happens again. And so now that I've been pregnant, let me tell you where I'm at with food addiction as far as like being in pregnancy and all the things. So early on in pregnancy, I was literally like the first really 3 months, no joke, I just could not eat. I was throwing up every day. My stomach hurt so bad that I knew I needed to eat. I don't know if you guys know that feeling of when you are so hungry that you feel nauseous, but because you're so nauseous, the thought of food is just disgusts you. Like it's just too much, That's how I felt every single day. And I couldn't drink ketones because I was puking. I wasn't running my business. I wasn't doing anything. It was really a dark time. Like I cannot undermine how crappy those first couple of months were, that I just had a lot of anger and sad feelings towards my pregnancy. And I don't say that like, proud. It was just really hard. I was like, what did I get myself into? So there was a minute there where I wasn't eating anything at all. And then, I still am getting sick. I am creeping up to the third trimester. I'm creeping up to the third trimester and I still throw up here and there. However, I have been able to eat more as the months go by. I definitely can eat more than I used to. And I've gained, last time I weighed myself, I had gained 10 pounds actually, which shocked me just because of how much I've been sick. But I think it's like when I do eat, my body's like, okay, we have to hold on to this, girl, because you are expelling everything that you're giving us. Seriously. So I think it's when I eat, my body's just like trying to hold on to what it can. I was like, I hope that this pregnancy does not like re-trigger something and make things get worse again. Now that my appetite is pretty stable and I'm not as sick as often and things like that, I feel much more balanced. I'm eating way healthier foods than I was, because in the beginning, listen, you have to eat what you can just eat. Like seriously, if all you could tolerate is macaroni and cheese, you have to do that. You just need to eat it. And that's how I was. I couldn't even fathom. Keep in mind how low my energy was. You can imagine how bad that was, that I couldn't fathom making healthy food. I couldn't even think of like, even if it was like a pre-made salad that I had to like put together in a bowl, I was like, this is just too much. I was just eating the crappiest crap that I felt like I could keep down and that was super easy to make and accessible, because I was having to take care of my son too. And it was just, even making his food some days was really hard. Like to prepare his food was difficult because my stomach would hurt so bad because I needed to eat and then I just couldn't eat. And it was just this horrible cycle. But like I said, I really feel back now that I'm in a much better mental state. And this baby is literally putting so much pressure on my stomach. Your girl can't overeat anyway. I actually find myself going a little too long without eating because then my stomach starts hurting. So it's really hard to force myself to eat when I'm like in a really balanced state where I don't feel like, when I'm not thinking about food, when I'm not focus on food when my food addiction is just managed, and everything's going smooth. It's really hard for me to force myself to eat. And that's the one thing about being pregnant this time versus with Anakin. With Anakin, like I didn't have to do any of that. Now it's to the point where like if I go too long without eating, I'm like, oh, dang. So I might try to start, having me little snacks prepared, like some cheese sticks and some cut up fruit already and things like that, just to keep myself from my stomach hurting, because I don't like to get to the point. If I go too long, I do get to the point where, again, I feel like I can't eat because I'm too nauseous. So it's really a vicious cycle, but I'm trying to stay on top of it, trying to eat as many fruits and vegetables, getting my protein in, and just keeping my energy levels up. I can drink ketones again, thank the Lord, because I'm not throwing up as often. And so everything's getting just kind of back in order. So that's kind of where I'm at in my food addiction story. There's so much more I could obviously talk about. And I know this was already very, very long, but it is like a 25-year story almost. So if you guys have any more questions or anything you would like to hear from me about this or any other subject, it doesn't matter. Feel free to message me on Instagram or Facebook or any of those. I will have my links in the show notes if you know how to access those. If not, just go to my Instagram at Lizzy in Littles, LizzyAndLittles. Feel free to DM me there. Find all my links there to my Facebook and stuff so we can be friends on all the platforms, TikTok, all the things. Feel free to screenshot this and post it in your stories and tag me. Let me know what you got from this. If you did find any value, if there was anything you felt like you learned or resonated with that caught your attention, I would love to know that so I get some feedback. Also, remember, you can always leave a review. 5 stars are appreciated, although I can't force you to do that. So leaving reviews does help my show get seen more and have more people, hear The Life with Lizzy. So I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. And I will see y'all in the next episode of The Life with Lizzy show.